so time to debate the debate. We're joined by Democratic strategist Spencer Critchley. He is former communications advisor for the Obama campaign. Also with us, Republican strategist Matt Klink and debate analyst with over 2 decades of experience, Todd Graham, joining us. Todd is a professor of debate at Southern Illinois University. So guys, I really want to know whom you thought won the debate. We're going to really save that for one of the last things that we chat about this morning. So let's start though from the beginning instead. The moment Kamala Harris walked onto stage, from the body language, you could tell that she was trying to make eye contact with Trump from the get-go. And then she introduces herself saying, Kamala Harris. Trump said, "It's good to see you, have fun." Todd, why do you think she did that? Of course, Trump knows very well that she's Kamala Harris.
Well, I mean, the two hadn't officially met from what we've been told, so it seemed like the right thing to do to go shake someone's hand. I didn't put too much off of that original handshake, only because I've coached so much debate, and there have been so many times that my teams have also had the awkward handshake. Do we do it now? Do we wait till after the debate? Do we not do it after the debate? So I didn't really put too much weight into that. I was glad to see them at least shaking hands before the debate, so that was a good start.
Matt, what did you make of the initial moment between Trump and Harris?
I thought it sent a powerful message for Kamala Harris. It showed that she was going to be more aggressive. I mean, if you look at how she was, she was clearly over, almost behind his podium. So she went to him. Again, it's a metaphor of taking the attack to him. And I agree, they had never met before. And I mean, look, it wasn't as awkward as it could have been, put it that way. So I think it's a great way for her to start. It certainly eases any anxiety that she has by immediately making contact with him, to know that he's a real living flesh and blood person.
Well, since we already have you on this now, Harris repeatedly tried to really rattle Trump. For instance, she said that Trump was fired by 81 million voters. That's the number that voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Then she said people leave his rallies out of boredom. We heard that in that package that just played out. Trump could have just let that slide. If he did, maybe Harris would have come across as a petty, bringing up rally numbers, for instance. But no, he allowed Harris to get under his skin. She repeatedly baited him and he bit. How do you think Trump handled the very thing that he should have really been prepared to ignore?
You know, I think that was one of what were probably a few key objectives that Kamala Harris had going in. One being to introduce herself to voters who have not learned much about her in the past. Another, to contrast herself with Trump on a policy basis. But a third, to do exactly that. Trump's emotional instability is well known to people who have been paying close attention to politics. And of course, she knew that if she poked at his famously sensitive ego, it would quite likely destabilize him, which is exactly what happened. I actually don't think Trump is capable of controlling his impulses there. He's demonstrated that repeatedly, not just during his time in politics, but throughout his time in public life as a well-known but famously emotionally volatile businessman.
Right, Spencer, Trump may have been rattled during the debate, as we saw, but just let's look at Harris for a bit. Now, some say that she should really have done a better job, and why she's changed her mind on certain issues. Let's take fracking, for example, a technology that's used to drill oil and gas. She said that she's not going to ban it. Okay, we get that. But when asked very pointedly in the debate why she's changed her mind, it was a very generic response, something along the lines of we can increase a thriving a clean energy economy without banning fracking. Do you think that she had to be clearer on these issues, really come out strongly and tell us why she's changed her mind on some of these issues?
Well, yes and no. I would lead by saying that actually being consistent on policy, or having any kind of coherent policy, I'm sorry to say, really doesn't matter all that much to most voters, even those voters who think that it does. Most people who do care about policy care about how that policy feels as presented by the candidate. And if a candidate, especially in a compressed format like a debate, on the national stage, as we saw last night, gets into the details of describing why she changed from one technical position on policy to another technical position on policy, you will lose the great majority of voters within the first couple of sentences out of your mouth. So I think that in general, she's doing the right thing politically not to get drawn into that kind of technical discussion, especially when she's explaining a change in her own position. There's an old saying in politics, if you're explaining, you're losing, no matter how good the explanation is. But all that said, one thing I think she could do a little better is when challenged on something like that, don't give, as you describe, a fairly general answer, which I think she did. Use it as an opportunity to make a positive statement of what you do stand for. You can almost always turn it into a positive statement and an honest statement of what you do stand for. And of course, you can acknowledge that, yes, you have changed your mind on this subject. And I think voters would appreciate the authenticity of at least a passing comment like that on the way to, as I say, seizing the framing of that question and using it to make a positive statement on your own behalf.
Todd, as a debate expert, what do you think about how Harris handles some of her flip-flops on the debate stage?
I wasn't really concerned about the flip-flops, and I don't really think that people at home were too concerned about that either. Harris just needed to show up on the debate stage last night and basically not be Joe Biden. Trump is trying to tie Harris and Biden together and find some, negative things about Biden's presidency. But the problem is a lot of the stuff Biden got accomplished was fairly popular. It's just that Joe Biden wasn't popular. So Kamala Harris needed to come on stage and not necessarily focus on the policy aspects as much as most of the guests are saying. She just needed to get the feels out, right? Because Joe Biden, he might have technically beat Donald Trump in the debates 4 years ago, but didn't really feel like it, right? You couldn't walk away from that and go, that was obvious. And the same thing with Hillary Clinton in 2016. So I think last night that it was a successful debate for Harris. If she walked away and went, yeah, that felt good, I got to do that. And she was doing an excellent job of that. The one thing I would point out is I just call it
anything she could have done better?
Trump. Oh, yeah, of course, she could always do a couple things better. I don't like how she organizes her answers. I think you got to start by answering the question first and then going back into attack. So I think if you have the same, and the other thing she should always do is repeat the question out loud, because then you can remind everybody, oh, by the way, and that was the question, but Donald Trump was talking about these things instead. So, yeah, there's a couple of things she could have done to get a little bit better.
All right, Matt, now, some of what Trump said, honestly, struck me as a bit far-fetched, even if the points he was making had, let's say, wide resonance amongst voter bases that he appeals to. Now, the whole thing about immigrants eating their pets, this kind of messaging will, to me, do nothing for moderate swing state voters who he should have really been targeting. Do you really think that was perhaps a missed opportunity on stage last night?
Well, let's be clear. I mean, he inarticulately said the thing about the pets. However, what he was talking about was that, in a town of 60,000 people in Springfield, Ohio, the Biden-Harris administration has put 20,000 Haitian refugees into that town. And while the city manager says they have no evidence that pets are disappearing, anecdotal evidence from people on the ground says that their pets aren't there and that people are killing ducks in the park. So it does highlight a larger issue that the Biden and Harris administration has let anywhere from 10 to 12 million people into this country. Most of those 10 million people here illegally, we have no idea who they are, and we have no idea where they are. So, I mean, look, I wouldn't have said that current example. It's exploding all over the internet. It was before the debate. It will after the debate. Actually, some of the memes are quite funny, but it does highlight the problem that Mrs. Harris has with the border, and that immigration in America is now a national issue, and it's a loser for the Democrats because every community is negatively affected by illegal immigration.
Spencer, would you agree with that?
No, I think it's this is a case where one could get into a technical discussion of immigration policy and miss the big picture. The big picture here is that Donald Trump has always made a practice of describing immigrants in terrifying terms, in terms like poisoning the blood of our country, terms that are literally reminiscent of Nazi Germany. There is a long history of this. It goes back many centuries of people targeting outsiders. This is the history of anti-Semitism, for example. But we unfortunately see it in countries around the world where there'll be one group who depicts another group as invaders and subhuman. And that is the big obvious point that has been at the center of Donald Trump's political career since he was spreading the birther conspiracy lies about Barack Obama. He was the birther in chief, as he was described back then, obviously trying to make people afraid of this black man with an African sounding name, launching his campaign with a description of rapists and murderers supposedly flooding across the border from Mexico and elsewhere to the south. At the same time, Trump and his allies have no problem, apparently, with immigrants like me, for example. I immigrated to the United States from Canada, originally from Canada and Bermuda. Apparently, there is no problem whatsoever with immigrants like me, and the reason for that is obvious. We can have an intelligent discussion of immigration policy, and there are solutions to the security challenges at the southern border, which are real given the flood of asylum seekers. But Trump has shown not only no interest in solutions, but he's actually rejected one of the toughest border enforcement measures anybody has ever seen because he thought it would damage his chances politically, because it's more valuable to him to exploit this issue without doing anything to try to solve the problem.
All right, do stay with us. We have lots more to talk about, but let's take a look at calls for a rematch less than an hour after the presidential debate ended. Harris called for another debate with Trump. Harris's campaign quickly sent out an email praising her performance and criticizing Trump's responses and demeanor. Donald Trump quickly responded, stating that the Harris campaign was only asking for a rematch since they lost and that the Trump campaign will consider the request. Matt, as a Republican strategist, would your advice be to Trump and the Trump campaign that they should perhaps push for another debate, maybe on Fox, which Trump feels would be perhaps more balanced towards him?
Look, I think that the American people are, I'll take off my partisan hat for a second. I think that the American people deserve to see the two candidates for the highest office in the land be on stage together, not just once, but multiple times. The challenge here is that the devil will be in the details. You know, the Trump campaign agreed to 2 debates when Joe Biden was the candidate on CNN and ABC. I think that they would want to press for a little bit more closer to center news organizations, certainly than ABC and CNN. The problem is that, will Harris agree to that? Unlikely. But you know what? Leaving politics aside, it's best for the American people to see their two candidates side by side. I think last night that Mrs. Harris got the better of Mr. Trump, and all the more reason why they deserve another opportunity to see if this is a one-off or if she can consistently beat him. So I hope that it happens. Let's put the pettiness aside, and I mean, maybe we have multiple anchors from different stations. I don't know, but it needs to happen.
Todd, you would agree with that, because I was listening to one of your videos as a debate expert where you stressed the real importance of having more than one debate. Americans need to know more from the candidate. Just give us a quick, very brief explainer as to why this is so important for the American public to have a second or perhaps a third round.
Well, it starts with the moderators. Generally, the moderators aren't going to do the same job from one debate to the next. And I think if you just simply improve moderators, you improve the debate usually. But the reason I like having a series of debates is because in debate number 1, they could talk about issues like the economy and inflation, but they probably won't get very deep. In debate number 2, you can literally pick up where you left off and say, all right, in that last debate, we talked about inflation, and what exactly was your plan again? And then you can go deeper and deeper. Famously, when Mitt Romney was running for president, I think he had 22 debates that year, and Mitt Romney was the best debater debater I've ever seen from start to finish. He was very consistent, but it's because he was able to use previous debates information in a current debate that he was in. And that's why I like seeing more than one debate, is because you can build on that, and you really do know if somebody has a plan, has a solution, etc. After a couple debates, you've got to know. For example, in this debate, Donald Trump, when asked 3 times on the same question, do you have a plan to replace Obamacare? He finally came out with an answer, which I'd not heard in a debate yet, which was, I have concepts of a plan. It's that kind of thing that we can get out with repeated questioning of the same thing, of the same topic.
Okay, we have basically 20 seconds here, so I want to get your take on who won. Just a yes or no quick answer here. Matt, who do you think won? Was it Trump or Harris?
Kamala Harris won, but like most presidential debates, it's not going to make that much of a difference in polling.
Okay, Spencer, what did you think?
I think it's clear that Kamala Harris won.
And of course,
you won't find
Todd,
anybody disagreeing with that.
Neutral debate expert, your take.
Yeah, you won't find many people disagreeing with that. You've got to tell the
Harris.
truth.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here. Thank you so much. That was Matt, Spencer, and Todd joining us here on NDTV's US Election Watch.